Gentle parenting is getting blamed for an entire generation of kids who can't handle the word no. The backlash is everywhere. The verdict feels final. Parents tried it, kids got more dysregulated, not less, and now the pendulum is swinging back towards stricter, harder, more control. But gentle parenting didn't fail. Something else did. And if we don't get honest about what that something actually is, we're just going to keep swinging between the extremes. Too soft, then too hard. Connection, then control. And none of it works. This video is about what actually went wrong and what the complete system looks like. I'm Todd Sarner. I'm a licensed therapist, parenting coach, and the author of The Calm and Connected Parent. I was an original intern of and faculty member with Dr. Gordon Neufeld, the attachment pioneer, and I've spent over 20 years sitting with families, more than 2,000 of them at this point. A lot of the parents I work with have tried gentle parenting. Some swear by it, some feel burned by it, most are somewhere in the middle. What I found is the debate is almost always about the wrong thing. People are arguing about the philosophy when the real issue is the infrastructure. In this video, I'm going to show you what gentle parenting got right, what it missed, and the 3 pieces that have to be in place for any connection-based approach to actually work under real conditions. Let's start with what gentle parenting got right, because it got a lot right, and the backlash is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The core instinct is this: your child's behavior is communication, not a character flaw to be punished out of them. That instinct is correct. Decades of developmental research back it up. When a child is melting down, they're not manipulating you, they're dysregulated, they don't know what to do. Responding to that with connection rather than punishment is not weakness, it's what science actually supports. So what went wrong? Not the instinct, the implementation. Specifically 3 things that gentle parenting almost always left out. Gentle parenting focused almost entirely on what to do with the child, the scripts, the validation phrases, the way to hold a boundary with warmth. What it almost never addressed was you, your nervous system, your capacity. Here's the thing, you can't lend calm that you don't have. Co-regulation, the process where your child borrows your steady state, requires that you actually have the steady state to lend. If you're depleted, activated, running on fumes at the end of a long day, and you try to implement a gentle parenting technique, your child doesn't feel the technique, they feel the depletion. This is why so many parents say gentle parenting works sometimes and completely fell apart other times. It worked when you were regulated, it fell apart when you weren't. The approach wasn't inconsistent, your nervous system was. And nobody told you that your regulation was the foundation that everything else rested on. Gentle parenting, correctly understood, was never about permissiveness. The original framework included clear, consistent limits, just ones that were held with warmth. But somewhere in the translation from clinical framework to Instagram content, the limits got soft. The boundaries became negotiable. The no became a conversation that could go on forever as long as the child kept expressing feelings about it. And kids whose nervous systems are designed to test the edges of their environment kept pushing because they couldn't find the edge. Here's what people miss about boundaries. Children don't just tolerate limits, they need them. Not because limits teach obedience, because consistent, predictable limits are one of the primary ways a child's nervous system learns that the world is safe. Think of it this way, a boundary is not a wall that keeps a child out, it is a container that holds them in. It says, this is the shape of our world, it's reliable, it will not shift because you're upset, and that reliability is how you know you're safe. A child without reliable limits is not a free child, they're an anxious one, because their nervous system is constantly searching for the edge and not finding it. Gentle parenting's instinct to hold limits with warmth was right. The implementation and the so-called experts and the social media telephone game is what lost the limits. This is the one nobody talks about. And in my experience working with families, it's the one that most consistently determines whether any parenting approach succeeds or fails. Gentle parenting, like almost every parenting philosophy, was designed for one reader. One parent reads the book, one parent practices the scripts, one parent adopts the philosophy. And then it meets the real world, where there are two parents with different histories, different nervous systems, different tolerances, and the child finds the gap between them immediately. One parent validates, the other firms up. One stays curious, the other loses patience, and the child learns very quickly that the rules depend on which parent is in the room. That inconsistency isn't just confusing, it's dysregulating. A nervous system that can't predict the rules can't settle into safety. Gentle parenting gave one parent a philosophy. It never gave two parents a system. I want to tell you about a family I worked with. Two parents, both thoughtful, both committed, both having read the same parenting books. The mom had gotten deep on gentle parenting. She had the language, the scripts, the philosophy. She was genuinely good at it in her best moments. Dad, on the other hand, was skeptical. Not hostile, skeptical. He had grown up with clear rules and clear consequences. The endless validation felt to him like it was making things worse. Their 7-year-old Leo was a master of the gap between them. When mom tried to hold the limit, Leo would escalate until dad stepped in with something firmer. When dad tried to hold the limit, Leo would go to mom for a softer landing. The household was in a constant state of negotiation, inconsistency, and exhaustion. Mom blamed dad for undermining her approach. Dad blamed mom for not having enough structure. Leo, who was not trying to be manipulative, he was just being a child doing exactly what children do, kept finding the gap. When I sat with both of them, I said something that landed hard. Leo doesn't have a behavior problem. He has a system problem. And the system problem isn't his to fix. The work we did wasn't about changing Leo. It was about building a shared system that incorporated mom's instinct for connection and dad's instinct for structure. One that both of them can implement consistently even when they disagreed on the details. They started to have a lot of little victories right away, and within 6 weeks, Leo's behavior had shifted completely. Not because he had been managed differently, but because the inconsistency that had been dysregulating him was replaced with something his nervous system could finally trust. The approach wasn't the problem, the missing system was. So what does the complete system look like? 3 components, all necessary, none of them enough on their own. Component 1, your regulation as the foundation. Before any technique, any script, any approach, your nervous system has to be tended to, consistently, deliberately, as a non-negotiable investment in your family's emotional infrastructure. This means building a regulation practice that happens before the hard moments, not during them. A transition ritual. A few minutes between work and home where you intentionally lower your stress baseline before you walk into the highest demand part of your day. Without this, every other component is built on sand. I go deep on this in my book, The Calm and Connected Parent, if you want the full framework. Component 2, warm limits held consistently. Connection and structure are not opposites, they're partners. Your children need both. At times where your child is being aggressive or pushing, a limit needs to be held. Clearly, calmly, without negotiation. Because the limit is the container. The warmth is present. Genuinely, not performatively. Because the warmth is the relationship. I know you're upset, and the answer is still no. I love you, and the answer is still no. Both things at the same time. Every time. Not because it's easy, but because a nervous system that experiences both warmth and reliability learns something that neither alone can teach. I am loved and the world is safe. Component 3, co-parent alignment as a practice. This is not a one-time conversation, it's an ongoing practice. It means building a shared language for the hard moments, agreeing on non-negotiables before they become battlegrounds, having the repair conversations after the moments where you weren't aligned, not to assign blame, but to build a more consistent system. Because the emotional climate between you and your partner is the water your children are swimming in every day, and no parenting philosophy can compensate for a climate that's chronically misaligned. Good connection is the foundation of everything, but a regulated parent, warm limits, and an aligned partnership, that's what makes for the complete system. That's what gentle parenting was pointing towards, and that's what was missing from the implementation. So here's the real verdict on gentle parenting. The instinct was right. Connection is the foundation. Children's behavior is just communication, it's not character. The implementation was incomplete. It gave parents the right values without the infrastructure to live them under real conditions. And the backlash, the swing towards stricter, harder, more controlling approaches, is not the answer. The problem was never too much connection. It was connection without capacity, warmth without limits, philosophy without a system. The answer is not less gentle parenting. It's the more complete version of it. And the complete version doesn't start with your child. It starts with you, with your nervous system, with your partnership, with the infrastructure that makes everything else possible. That's the work, and it's so worth doing. Here's your one question for the week. Of these 3 missing pieces, your own regulation, consistent warm limits, and co-parent alignment, which one is most absent in your home right now? Just one. Be honest with yourself, because that's where the work starts. Not a new philosophy, with a specific piece that's missing from the system you already have. If you want a deeper dive on these concepts and more, check out my free 20-minute masterclass that walks through the exact system that I've used with my private clients for over 2 decades now. The link is in the description. If this video gave you language for something you've been feeling but couldn't name, hit subscribe. This is what we do here every week. And I've included some links to videos related to this topic and other resources below. Please check them out. I hope this has been helpful. I'll see you in the next video.